Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West River Candidates Night for Ward 2 Town Councillor, presented by the West River Residents Association. Apparently there was a memo that went out that it was dress-up night, and I didn't get the memo, so I apologize, no disrespect meant. My name is Craig Schiller, and I'm Vice President of the WRA. I'm pinch hitting tonight for our President, Ted Hogan, who is recuperating from knee surgery. Get better. Of the three levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, municipal is the one that affects our lives daily. So it's great to see you all come out to hear this talk tonight. Before we start, I want to let you know what the format of the evening will be and go over a few ground rules. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks. The order of the opening remarks is chosen by lot. In the run-up to this event, we solicited questions from Ward 2 residents. So after the opening remarks, I'll ask questions that Ted and I have chosen from all the submissions we received. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer the questions, and I'll try to keep track and vary the order of responses. WRA board member Elizabeth Hibbert over there is our official timer. When time is up, we'll hear one of these melodious signals. As I go. You should be running about 12 or 13 questions. We're trying to wrap this up by around 9. If we have any time left at the end of those questions, I'll open it up to the floor for more. Finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. Again, the order to the closing remarks was determined by lot just a few minutes ago. Now the ground rules. For the candidates, we're interested in an informative discussion of the issues. Please, no personal attacks. For the audience, this is not a political rally. Please do not express your appreciation or displeasure about anything said by the candidates. And please do not applaud, except for now, as I introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Gordon Bobsich. Ray Chisholm. And Fraser Dowd.
Check. It works.
All right, let's get this party started. Why don't we start with Gordon? What are your top 3 priorities for the ward? What, for Gordon, what are your top 3 priorities for the ward?
We're not doing opening statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've lost my mind. So, going back to the opening statement. Ray is first.
Okay, this is difficult for me for 2 minutes. A lot of you know me. 2 minutes is it's a short period of time for me to speak. So I'm going to stick with the script. Hello, my name is Ray Chisholm. I'm the incumbent for Ward 2 as your local councillor. I would like to personally thank the West River Residents Association for facilitating this candidates meeting. I'm a lifelong Ward 2 resident, married with 2 daughters and a grandson. My roots in Oakville run deep. I've dedicated my adult life to the betterment of Oakville, and I have extensive municipal affairs and operations background, which brings a very good understanding of the issues that face our residents. My leadership and community engagement has produced some of the best programs and recreational facilities in Ontario. After retiring from my position as Senior Manager of Recreation Services, I continued my community involvement. And in 2016, just 2 years ago, I won the by-election for Ward 2. I was successful in winning the by-election for Ward 2, and I've never stopped working for my community, and I'm a strong advocate at council. My municipal background has been a great asset. I've hit the road running, and I was successful in moving issues to the top of the agenda, and that directly impacted Ward 2. Specifically, the Spears Road Corridor Development Improvement Program, the Kerr Street Underpass Project, and the Lakeshore West improvements that's coming online. I'm invested in my community. I offer the knowledge, skills to continue to advocate strongly on behalf of Ward 2. Ward 2 continues to be the busiest ward in the town of Oakville, and I'm happy to be part of the many achievements that have come to fruition in our ward. The opening of the new fire station in the Trafalgar Park Community Center, the commencement of the Kerr Street Underpass project in partnership with Metrolinx, completion of the new Lakeshore Bridge, and also to continue the opposition of any development at Glen Abbey. I've lived in Ward 2 for many years and I've been a member of countless community organizations throughout my career. I have witnessed the growth and the changes in Oakville. However, with growth comes challenges, and we need to continue to defend our position from unnecessary development that does not align with the official plan. Oakville is strong in all fronts and continues to be a place where people want to live. Let's keep moving forward, and I will ensure to continue to work hard on your behalf. Tonight, I'm here
That's
to
time, sorry.
Thank you. Oh, I got it.
Gordon?
Yes, my name is Gordon Bobisich. I like to refer to myself as Mr. B, and I say that to distinguish me from these other humans. In any event, my campaign materials here has a B, and it says, vote for me, vote for a hard-working B. In fact, that's what I've been doing all my life. I've been a hard-working individual. My background is set out here. I'm a lawyer over 40 years. I'm still practicing. I was a judge for 16 years, retired. I'm a former school board trustee. I was a bencher of the Law Society for 12 years. I did Ward 2, as I say, I came over with Christopher Columbus, but I've been only here 30-some years. I'm a former college teacher. I love trees. I'm a tree space advocate. I love soccer. I'm fanatical about soccer. And this year was an exceptional year for soccer. I'm Croatian. It was an exceptional year for us Croatians. A little country. Second in the world, not bad. Oh. Anyway, I coached men, women, and boys soccer all my life, basically. Now, as far as our ward is concerned, I think we should start thinking big. We're thinking petty, especially on the issue of Glen Abbey. We spent $5.5 million on legal fees, and those legal fees aren't for Oakville lawyers. They're downtown big firms. And I'm telling you, in my legal opinion, we're going to lose this case. The loser always pays the winner. That means we're going to pay the other side $5.5 million. That's $11 million gone.
Thank you, Gordon. Fred?
Thanks, Greg. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and I'd like to, before I begin, recognize the Anishinaabe peoples of the Mississaugas of the New Credit, whose traditional territory we gather on today. I'd also like to thank my friends at the WRA for putting this on tonight. My name is Fraser. I'm the Executive Director of Cycle Oakville, as well as a spokesperson for the Save Glen Abbey Coalition, a founding member of that group as well. One of the things in the community here that I've also been proud to work with is the Kerr Street Mission as a community volunteer in their food bank. Tonight I want to talk to you about why I think I deserve your vote. And my plan is simple if I'm elected. One of the things I'd like to do is fix the long-standing speeding issue on Queen Mary and streets like Pine Grove by reducing the speed limits from 50 to 40 as a first step. I'd also like to decrease congestion and build safer streets, especially around our GO train stations. And I'd like to protect Glen Abbey Golf Course, ideally by not settling with the public, because unlike Gordon, I do think we can win this. I want to ensure that we have adequate after-hours and weekend bylaw enforcement, and that we provide tangible support to our business community. Now tonight, I'm pretty sure you're going to hear a lot about how some of the folks up here believe that it's not about how hard you work, but how much time you've spent working. And I'm running because I honestly don't think that we have had effective leadership in Ward 2 from my opponent, and I'm prepared to deliver that for the residents of Ward 2. As most of you know, I put my personal phone number on all of my literature and my website, so that residents know how to reach me when they need to get hold of me. I have a public Facebook page and a public Twitter account to ensure that everyone knows what's going on. A vote for me is a vote for someone that can work and collaborate with the councillors on council to get results. Someone who provides better communication, which means communicating where residents are, which is actively on Facebook, Twitter, other social media, email, phone, and at the door. In me, you have someone who will continue to take a stand on important issues, even if it's not politically popular, but it's the right thing to do. Not simply just raise my hand when the mayor tells me to do so. And I'm asking for your vote tonight on October 22nd, so that on October 23rd, I can get to work with you to solve the issues facing our ward. So on October 22nd, please consider voting for Fraser Kamal for Town Councillor of Ward 2.
Okay. Well, let's start with you. What are your top 3 priorities for the ward?
So I think the number one has to be fixing the speeding issue, as I mentioned. And there's a lot, systematically a bunch of streets in Ward 2, Monk's Passage, Queen Mary, and Pine Grove that are all designated at 50, and I think they should be 40. So that's number one. Number two, I think, has to be decreasing the amount of congestion we have around our GO train stations, because any business needs to be able to move goods quickly, and in Oakville, they have a major problem with that, especially through 2 major corridors, with Oakville GO train station being the second most popular GO train station in all of Ontario. The other big one for me is protecting Glen Abbey. I've been very involved in that issue, and unlike my colleague who was on council for the Saw Wet decision, I think that we can win this, and we need to have someone on council that has the stomach to push council to fight, and not settle with public, eventually when that offer will come in to settle on whether to develop or not. I think we can win this, and I think we just need to make sure that we have people on council fighting to ensure that we stay in the fight. So those to me are the top 3 issues on council.
Thank you. Ray, same question.
Just one quick comment. I was not on council and saw what was considered. I wasn't part of that, so I just wanted to have correction on that one. The big issues, of course, are speeding, and the challenge we're having with speeding is that people just ignore the signs and they're not paying attention. I'm a firm believer by dropping it to 40 kilometers is not going to solve the problem. People just ignore it and they continue on speeding. We have traffic warrants that are provided by the town to look at all areas within the town, especially Pine Grove and Queen Mary. We've been working with WRRA on that one. We're also putting in, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, there are speed cushions putting on Pine Grove. Pine Grove is a very dangerous road because there's no curbing that's going on there, and cars are speeding and falling into the front of lawns. So that's the challenge. The other part is the infilling is going on. A lot of people are under pressure. Existing neighbors are having problems with new builds coming in, and we have to ensure that our property standards bylaw and our lot maintenance bylaw and all the bylaws that we put in place so we control the growth and keep it in line so that our existing neighbors and residents are fully aware that you do have rights, and if there's any concerns, you can call the town under bylaw. Now, the third one was bylaw enforcement. With the growth of Oakville, we're putting in bylaws, but unfortunately we don't have the ability to enforce them all the time because of lack of resources. I probably average 10 to 15 calls a week on bylaw enforcement infractions. And that goes from parking, from housing, from infilling, from grass, weeds, garbage, and so forth. So that's a real challenge we're having in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Gordon, your top 3?
I didn't have a chance to complete my answer on the Glen Abbey. When I say we should think big, I think we should buy it or expropriate it. You all and myself included will die. The town will not die. We can mortgage this even if it's 60 years. If we own it, we can do whatever we want with it. Also, I'm sure at one time when they were buying Central Park, New York, everybody thought they were crazy because, oh, how valuable land, we could do this, we could do that. Why don't we think big and buy this thing? Money's cheap. The town has AAA rating to borrow it. Like I said, let's think big. Like, why are we wasting all this money on legal fees? Like, I'm a lawyer, I'm interested in lawyers making money, but I'm more interested in the town doing something big. The other problem is parking. My suggestion is that we have free parking in all of Oakville. I think it'd be great advertisement to advertise ourselves as the only town in Canada with free parking. You know that phrase, it's worth the drive to? We could have the phrase, it's worth the drive to Oakville. The parking is free. We're in Ward 2. I've suggested that. I'm not sure I can swing the whole city, but for at least Kerr Street. Every merchant I talk to on Kerr Street think this is a great idea. Free parking on Kerr Street.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ray, please describe your roots. I know you have a little bit already, but your roots in Ward 2 and how your experience here has led you to seek this office.
Well, there's a lot of history here. I've lived in Ward 2 for many, many years. I used to live at 75 Stewart. I used to live at 191 Queen Mary. I've been to Circle in Ward 2, and I know the neighborhood very well. There has been massive change. Kerr Street at one time wasn't a commercial area. It was residential. There was a lot of houses, a lot of homes. And so as time goes on, the homes go down and commercials going up. The transition is very tight in Kerr Street. So to understand what's happening in Ward 2, it's a transformation of our residential areas to what I call one-level homes, two-level homes, bigger homes, and also Kerr Street is changing with new business coming into play. We're looking at the whole underpass and Spears Road for development. So there's a lot of things happening in our ward compared to the other wards. It continues on. There's got to be a lot of infrastructure change. And living in this ward, I've seen so many changes over the years, but most of the time it's good change. But again, we have challenges with congestion. Is every time we bring people down, we bring in their vehicles. So there's got to be some solutions with respect to how we get around municipality with respect to transportation, bicycling, Uber, buses, whatever. In the future is going to be that. The cars are just going to have to take a sideline in the future.
Thank you. Frank.
Sure. So I just do want to clear something up here. Ray can say he wasn't on council for Saw Wet decision, but he was, because I wrote an op-ed to the Beaver, and the news about it saying calling it out. So you can say you're not on council, but you were. In terms of my involvement with Oakville, my first start was actually, oddly enough, involving Ray. My mom and I were trying to save Brookdale Pool because the town of Oakville didn't feel that they needed public pools anymore, and they wanted to close Brookdale Pool. So my mom and I went door to door. I think I was probably about 8 years old, collecting signatures to try and stop it. Since then, I've continued to be involved in the community. My wife and I lived in Toronto for a year or two, and then we moved back here. And I live in the new Meridian Census condos just up the street. Like I said, I'm the current executive director of Cycle Oakville, and a spokesperson for Sakeland Abbey. I've been quite involved in a lot of different things in Oakville, and I think the one biggest thing that we need to pay attention to is that our town council has passed a variety of interesting bylaws recently that I think are more representative of a town of 30,000 when we're really a city of 200,000. And we need to start looking at issues the way a city would. So one of the key things that I do believe that we need to do is have a minimum grid of bike lanes and safe pedestrian infrastructure. I do agree with Ray when he said that cars will have to take a sideline at some point. And I think we're getting a lot closer to that than I think some of the other members of council. I think realistically, the way to decrease congestion in Oakville is to ensure that if you live near a GO train station, like many do in West River here, that you have a safe way to walk to Oakville GO or to ride your bike. And the current plans that the town of Oakville has passed will ensure that it's 3 or 4 elections from now by the time any bike lanes or anything gets built on Spears Road connecting to Oakville GO. So it's something I think we need to fix, and we need to start looking at problems like the city would not live in town.
Thank you. Gordon, how's your experience here led you to seek this office?
As I like to say, I came here with Christopher Columbus, but it's been only 30 years I've been here. When I arrived here, this was a nice little town, and that's what I'm interested in. I want to keep this as much as possible a nice little town. I'm against development, okay? No more subdivisions. I'm prepared to fall or stand on that. Originally, the city, for whatever reason, wanted to put a street at the corner of Dorval and Mary, which would have ended up, at that time, it was an army property there, Rebecca and Dorval. At that time, the street would have ended up right beside bus stop, with children going there, safe one day to start a business in Oakville? You don't know what you're talking about. If you get it done in 3 months, you're doing good. 2 months. You can't believe how many bylaws and rules they got putting up signs for this election. Why do we need all these rules? It's got to be 6 inches from this, 4 inches from that. I got to walk around with a tape, put up signs.
Thank you.
Great. Who sat down the road? Who sat down and rolled off like 65?
Okay, thank you.
Putting up signs.
Gotcha. Gordon, what do you think of the work of the current Oakville mayor and council? What have they done right and what would they improve? And what changes would you work to initiate?
Well, what I would initiate, I'd like to propose, what I said. Free parking in Oakville. Buses. For 30 years, every hour a bus goes by my house. You know how many people on that bus? 1, maybe 2. For 30 years. I've never seen a bus with more than 2 people on it. Why do we need that big animal? Why can't we use a little bus on routes which are not busy? Come on. Saves money. Don't you think so? Now, the other thing is, nobody's mentioned, but I've been asked a lot about it, going from door, is the sale of cannabis. I'm in favor of it. Matter of fact, every person I talk to in Kerstreet's in favor of it. They say, why can't we make a couple of dollars on it?
Gordon, it would be helpful if you answered the question I asked.
I thought it was.
No, you don't. The question is,
That's
what do you think of the work of the current Oakville mayor and council?
I don't want to express an opinion. This is a political time, election. I'm not going to praise anybody or demean anybody.
Okay,
Whether I'm asking the
what do you
question,
think they could improve?
I'm trying to tell you what I think.
Okay.
You don't might agree with me, but
I'm not hearing it, but go ahead.
it's just your opinion that I'm not answering the question. I thought of it. Now you're distracted. I don't want to express an opinion of the current council, okay? That's all there is to it. If I express an opinion of the current council, that means I'm favoring somebody or not favoring somebody, all right? I'm not expressing an opinion. That's my opinion.
Okay. Fred?
So, to answer the question, in terms of the policies that I like or dislike, I think that the job that town council has done on Glen Avenue has been spot on, and I've been supporting it every step of the way. Since 2016 when we did the interim control bylaw, I think that the way that we have fought this is the best way we could. I think that there may have been a discussion to buy the property as a central park at some point, but the mayor and council chose to go a different route, and we have to support that. I do think it's past the point of purchasing the course, but you certainly have the opinion that we should do it now. Where I do tend to disagree with mayor and council is on cannabis, because I do think that it's dangerous to take the position that Ray has, that we should opt out and not allow cannabis sales in Oakville, because legalization is happening, and if we want to ensure that there is a safe and responsible way to distribute cannabis, we need to ensure that it's done like alcohol. And putting our heads in the sand and saying that we're not going to allow cannabis here is Prohibition 2.0, and it's going to work just as well as the first one. So, people can disagree with me, but I unapologetically support us to not opt out, and I think that if we do opt out, like the current mayor and council have advised, that we would be increasing a dangerous situation where we would continue to have marijuana in our schools, especially when we had an incident just a couple months ago where a boy was shot over drugs in our neighborhood. So it's something that if we were to opt out, I think we need to do.
Thank you. Ray, I understand you could be a little biased on this one, but
Yeah, I'd like to respond just shortly on that. I know you probably have another question, but with respect to the cannabis and where we're going with this, My position was I'm opting out this time because council hasn't even had an opportunity to meet on it. We didn't know what the rules of engagement are. We had no idea. And then a new government comes in and says it's out of the LCBO administration, now it's private. We didn't know what the rules are. So I'm saying, let's defer it, and let's make sure we understand what's involved with respect to licensing, zoning, diversion programs, enforcement. There's going to be a cost to the taxpayer for this to come into play. Fraser's absolutely right. It's legal. And that's a different situation altogether with private growing and everything else in your home. What we're talking about is the retail outlets and how they're going to be provided down. I'm not saying no. I'm saying let's defer until we get all the facts. Council report is coming to council October 9th, and then we'll deal with it. There has been no decision, and there has been no vote, and we will move forward with the appropriate information when it comes to us.
Thank you. Fraser, how would you work to get resident feedback and also provide feedback on your progress?
So I think one of the big things that we need to ensure that we get back is better communication. I mentioned in my opening remarks, one of the things that I've been unfortunate not to see is good communication from our council to residents. So one of the things that I would do is constant email outs monthly to residents so they know what's going on. The other thing I think is really important is just social media. You know, a lot of people in this room have either given me kudos or criticized me on social media, and it's a very important form of communication that we need to see more of. You know, Ray's been in the position for 2 years and doesn't have a public Facebook page for people to comment on, to provide feedback. You know, people live busy lives. I'm even surprised we got this many people out in this room tonight. But a lot of people live busy lives. We can't be expecting them to write letters and call and to send a strongly worded email when Facebook is one of the primary forms of communication. We need to ensure that our representatives are accessible. And like I said, social media is one of the best ways that we can do that.
Thank you. Ray, how would you work to get feedback and to provide feedback on your progress?
Facebook and everything else, with all due respect, is a tool to use for communication, absolutely. But there is also a dark side of that type of communication. I'm a firm believer in face-to-face. I'd rather talk to people at their sites and what their issues are. Yes, I do have email. Yes, I do have a website. Yes, I do have communication available to everybody and anybody. If you see the people in here tonight, I have communicated very well to all my constituents with respect to what's happening. We have a newsletter that goes out. It's very informative. I share on Facebook all the time about activities within the town. To say that I'm not communicating is not correct. I do, on a 24-hour basis, I'm on talking to everybody in emails and getting back. There's more to just Facebook and Twitter. It's about the human connection and talking to people that have real concerns in our neighborhood. There are people in our neighborhood who are scared, who are worried. I go see them. I don't put them on Twitter.
All right. So, Gordon, how would you get feedback and give?
Well, I mentioned I've been a lawyer for 42 years. One of the rules we have that we must communicate with our clients. So I promise you this. If you call me, I will call you back. If you email me, I will email you back. That's the best I can do.
Thank you. We touched on this a little bit, but let's get into it with a little more depth. Ray, what do you do specifically to help the problem of speeding in neighborhoods?
Sorry?
What is the problem of speeding in neighborhoods?
Oh, geez, that's a hot topic. And you know, Craig, you and I and Ted, we've been involved with this for a couple years. The town has what they call speed warrants program. They will come out and they will do the assessments on speeding with respect to the speeding. And perception or not, we have to do these speed tests to make sure that the speeding is happening or not happening. And there are other solutions to it. If speeding is in the percentile, high percentile, then there's ways of doing it. And you've seen it in safety zones in our schools. You have the speed cushions, you have four-way stops, you now have pixel flashes like you have on Trafalgar Road, whereby it's a photo in photo radar, you're speeding, it tells you you're going too fast, you gotta slow down. So there's all these technologies coming in. I really believe the innovation of technology with respect to traffic flows and so forth has to come. Enforcement is, as you all know, you'd love to have a police officer in every corner to catch the speed. It's not happening. With all due respect, the correlation of speeding in your neighborhoods are people live in your neighborhood, and it's people are rushing to get to work or get their kids to school and so forth. It is a challenge. We've also are doing some education in some of the neighborhoods, sending around flyers to talk about education about safe driving. Unfortunately, we can't mandate safe driving, but we're trying to educate and come up with technologies and innovations to make the flow slow down and look at the whole networking in Oakville. We're widening roads, we're putting in left-hand turning lanes, and so forth. So we're trying to improve congestion, but at the same time, the speed is always a challenge.
Thank you. Gordon, what would you do about speed?
The only solution I can see is put some flashing lights. I went down the 4th line where they have speed bumps. Guess what they want? They want them out. Because at night, it's just sheer noise. Boom, boom, boom. So, I don't think speed bumps is the solution. I think flashing lights is about the only thing you can do. But it's like human nature. I mean, you can put all the signs you want on 403, but some people will obey and some people won't. So, what can I say? I think flashing lights is about the best solution that possibly could be.
How about some traffic lights, greenway?
Sorry?
How about some traffic lights, greenway? And then
Okay, flashing lights, we can, I mean, there's multiple different types of flashing lights. Just lights, I can't see putting more speed bumps because like I said, people on 4th line want them out,
Thank you.
disturb their sleep.
Fraser, do you think taxes should remain the same?
I respond to the last question. I didn't get a chance to respond to the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
From speed.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that I proposed as my #1 campaign point to reduce speed limits, because I've looked at the science behind it and it shows that you actually have a higher percentage chance of surviving an accident if the speed limit is low. Now, I'm under no illusions here that people are going to stop speeding if we lower the speed limit on Queen Mary by 10 kilometers an hour. But the majority of people are going to go a bit slower. And, you know, everything you've heard from the two candidates here is everything but the thing that the science tells us to do, which is to lower speed limits. And it's not like we would be doing this the first time in the whole world. This has been done in countless jurisdictions across the world and it's worked. Now, I'm not saying this is going to fix the issue, but it's a perfect first step that we can take. By lowering the speed limit as a first step, we can look at to see if it works. And listen, I'll be the first one to say that if it doesn't work, I'll vote to increase the speed limit. But I bet you if we did a pilot on Queen Mary and we reduced the speed limit by 10 kilometers an hour, that Kevin, Ted, everyone would notice that cars would start to travel a bit slower. So for me, that's what I think the first step is that we can take. Gordon's right. The residents on 4th line want those speed bumps out. Because what happens is you go over the speed bump and then you speed up right after you leave it. So that's why we need to be looking at other options here. And unfortunately, our council's been unwilling to look at lowering the speed limit. And they use the evidence-based, the averages. But it's not the averages we're worried about, it's the extremes. And we need to try to counter the extremes by lowering the baseline, which is the speed limit from 50 to 40.
Thank you. So, back to you. Do you think taxes should remain the same, be raised, or be lowered, and why?
So I think that taxes at a reasonable level should raise with inflation to cover the cost of doing business in Oakville, and for the town to continue to offer services. On that though, one issue I do have is that, I'll admit, Julia Hanna's campaign brought forward some interesting information that showed that municipal services have not matched, but revenue and taxes have seemed to increase. Now, one thing that I've been a little frustrated with is that the town of Oakville has underfunded resources for active transportation, pedestrian, and bikes and whatnot. For years, they've underfunded, they've provided half of a role for this. Yet, revenue and taxes continue to increase. So I'm not opposed to tax increases, but I sure as heck believe that when we raise taxes, that your services should also be improving, or at least staying the same. They shouldn't be getting worse. So I'm not under any illusions here that we should be cutting taxes because they're too high or we need to increase them in an overly large amount. I think that if they're at a sustainable level, they should raise with inflation. But you need councillors that are going to, fight to ensure that that those tax dollars are being spent wisely. And that's one thing that I do offer.
Thank you. Ray, same question.
The way it sounds is like the town is going down the drain. With all due respect, council is very frugal with respect to the budget. Your budget from 2010, you were at 5% increase. We have decreased the tax rate down to 1.72 in your last tax. The reality of it is, what happens with the town is that they reallocate as much as they can before they come to council for approvals. They have the direction to be at inflation rate or below inflation rate, and that has been very successful. The town is in the black. The town doesn't owe, we're not in the red. We have a small debt load, which is for the Oakville Hospital, for what the past councils have put in. And how that's being paid for is not from your tax dollars, it's from the revenue dividends from Oakville Hydro. So to talk about the other issues, there are departments that are self-sustaining. They are not on the tax base, like parking. So to say to have free parking is, okay, well, free parking, but it's going to cost the taxpayer money. So you've got to be careful what you're offering with respect to you want to offer up is where the money's going to come from. Now, with the bicycle laneways and tracks and so forth, the town has been moving into active transportation. It's like anything. You can't have everything all at once. The issues you have is that people who pay taxes, gas tax, is for the roads, to fix the roads. Bicycles don't do that. That comes out of the tax levy. The tax levy right now, we just put in $300,000 for bike lanes on Spears Road. So we are moving forward with bike tracks and bike lanes.
Thank you. Good. Taxes up, down, or staying the same?
I pay nothing. Anybody wants to pay more taxes, please raise their hands. You're quite a liberty.
You get services.
Hey, you're quite a
Get
liberty.
services, I'm willing to pay for them.
Listen, sir, you're quite a liberty to write a check and send it to the city treasurer. I'm sure they will take it. I'm not interested in having my taxes increased. I don't plan to vote for any tax increases. So if you want tax increase, perhaps you should vote for somebody else.
Who pays for free parking?
I tell you.
You?
Kevin September.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you?
Please.
Yeah, okay, please. First of all, how much money is made in parking? Number one. Number two, how much bad faith is created by parking? Anybody gets a ticket, downtown, parking, shopping, has a bad taste in their mouth. If they're visitors, they won't come back. I'm not coming back, I got a big ticket there. So if the businesses increase on First Street, their profits increase, well, the town will make more money on that.
Thank you. Ray, what are your thoughts on house flipping and purchases made by foreign buyers and the increase in house rental by non-residents? Would you work to make that more difficult, and how?
That is a very complex and a big issue that we're having, and I deal with probably 60% of my time, and Councillor Duddock and I are always dealing with that. Foreign money coming into people buying homes or not doing anything with them, and they're sitting there, and then all of a sudden they start to decay. We have bylaws, and bylaw will act if you complain. They won't act because they don't go around checking these things out. If you've got complaints about properties and developments and issues like that, please call, because bylaw enforcement will go out and make sure that they're abiding to the development or the condition of the site. There's all kinds of development going on, flipping. You know, it's the market and how it works. We have no control over that with respect, and we are the creatures of the province when it comes to the Planning Act and building codes. We have to abide by those, but sometimes they look like there's a little bit of injustice that goes on, because I get really upset when our existing people that live in our neighborhoods for 25 and 30 years, they seem to get taken advantage of with all this development going on. And there's some inconsiderate contractors and developers out there. So we try to keep on top of that as much as possible. You see what's happening. This is no longer an infill one-off. These are almost subdivision changes. I know one lady who's 94 years old on Sandmere, and she's been in construction fatigue for 6 years. One house gets done, another one gets done, another one gets done. So that's the challenge.
You. Gordon,
What's the question? What can we do?
what are your thoughts on house flipping and purchases made by foreign buyers?
Well, I really don't think this is a town issue. That's a provincial issue. Because it's not only foreign buyers in Oakville, buyers all over Ontario. That's an Ontario issue as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we can really do anything about it.
Okay, thank you. Great.
So for me, I think Gordon's partly right. This isn't an issue just affecting Oakville, but my big thing is that if there's no one living in the house, it should at least look like someone is. The one thing I dislike the most is when I go knocking on a door and right next door there's grass that's up to my knees because it's a ghost house. So as long as the property is being maintained, I do tend to agree that it's not it's the market. People are making money doing this. And the town of Oakville doesn't really have any jurisdiction to mandate that to stop. Now on infill development, the one thing that I would do is advocate very strongly at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which is the body that many of the councillors and mayors are a part of, once they're elected, is performance-based building permits. And it's something that's been tried in many jurisdictions that tends to speed up the amount of development that happens or shorten the amount of time that it takes for a flip to happen. And what that would do is ensure that if a developer wants to tear down a house and rebuild it, they have 12 months to do so, which is definitely doable because my wife and I lived across from two that happened on West Side and they took 12 months. So it is doable, but it's ensuring that we have a different way that we offer building permits so that it's not just carte blanche that they can keep going forever. Now there are, as Ray mentioned, some streets that have been hard hit where they keep going one by one by one. Unfortunately for those, I think one of the biggest answers we need to do is ensure that we have adequate funding for our after hours and weekend bylaw enforcement once that comes into effect. And I can tell you that there are many members of council that do not like the amount of funding that's being provided to that. So I would ensure that that is maintained if I'm on council.
Thank you. Gordon, what would you do to promote the revitalization of Kerr Street?
Well, I just said, free parking. I talked to every merchant I talked to on First Street says it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. And what you do to prevent, obviously, full-time people that work in the stores parking all day, it's a voucher system. You park free if a merchant stamps a voucher. And I think that would be a major, major boost. Plus, obviously, there's a lot of shops on Kerr Street and that lower part of the Lakeshore that do want to sell cannabis. They say, let us make some money. I'm very pro-business. Let us make some money. If we can sell cigarettes, sure to goodness we can sell packaged cannabis. It's legal now. Why can't we buy it in Oakville? What? People have to drive to Winston Churchill to buy it, or see Joe on the corner of Kerr and Rebecca there to buy some spice stuff. Let these merchants buy this legal control cannabis. If it's this going to be a big boost to the business that we all hear about, great for them. They're just hanging in. The rents are atrocious. So
Thank you.
why not let them?
Hey,
Thanks. So on the revitalization of Kerr Street, as we all know, many of us live in the area here, Kerr Street is the happening place. And it's slowly kind of becoming the place to be for new businesses, for young people. One of the things I think we need to really encourage more of is mid to high density residential developments at Kerr and Spears. One of the things I think that's most important, and I've talked to a lot of the businesses as well, is foot traffic. And what better than free parking, as Gordon might say, is having people actually live in the VIA. And I think having more development at Kerr and Spears, an area that has always been a bit of an eyesore, needs to be encouraged so that we have more people that can walk to these businesses instead of having to drive. Now, this is a conversation that probably needs to be had on all three VIAs. But the other thing that we need to do for Kerr Street is ensure that if they want to expand their business, that it's easy to do so, and there's not town of Oakville policies that are restricting that. And I can tell you that a big concern of the businesses on Kerr Street is the fees that the town may charge them to open up a patio into one of the parking spots. There is a plan, hopefully it doesn't go through, but there is a plan to increase those fees when the town closes Lakeshore in downtown Oakville next year. And I'm firmly against that. I don't think that we should really be charging for those patios because they provide a social benefit to our community. They bring people together out in the open. We need more of that, not less. And so those are some of the two things that I would do to encourage the revitalization of Kerr Street. The other thing I'll mention, there is a new coffee shop that opened up on Kerr, so if you haven't been there yet, it's in the new house, just down from the Gingerman. Encourage you to check it out.
Thank you. Great.
Same question.
Same question.
Well, I'm going to take a different approach. Kerr Street is, I believe, the gateway of Oakville. It's the heart. There are 3 approvals under the urban structure, and Kerr Street has now a major approval with the whole structure, what's going to happen on Kerr Street and zoning and so forth. Larger buildings, and Fraser's right. The intensification is around modal transportation, whether it be the GO station in Bronte or Oakville or Kerr Street. This is where we're putting people because we want to get people out of the cars, the condominiums into the GO station and 15-minute Metro links. So there's all that going on. There is a major plan. If you have an opportunity, you review it with respect to transportation and also our whole intensification and building residential in this area and high-rise. So those have been approved. Those reports are there. We are starting to put it together. So in the revitalization of Kerr Street, it's already happening. You can see all the new businesses coming in. The Kerr Street Village VIA are doing an excellent job. We have an exemption now because we are now dedicated as a tourist area. So that gives an opportunity for stores to be open longer and later in order to get more customers in. When we get the underpass done, I think you'll see a lot more traffic coming down. We've got to get more people in. I believe in one-of-a-kind shops because they need to survive.
Thank you. Fraser, what do you think about the construction of additional condos on Kerr Street, taking into consideration increased traffic and population density in the area?
Sure. Well, so this is good because we can kind of follow up on our previous discussion. So one of the things that I'm obviously a big proponent of is active transportation and pedestrian walkability in our neighborhoods. And you know, it's a valid question that if we build a bunch of condos on Kerr Street, isn't it just going to get flooded with cars? But one of the things that you'll find is that when you build the right type of development near transportation routes like Oakville GO and on Spears with a Oakville bus transit, you often don't need a vehicle. And I think it's the sort of development that we need to encourage because, you know, we've built out almost as far as we can go. And now is the point where we do have to build up. And we need to be thinking about how people are going to move around other than by car. Because in Kerr, downtown, and in Bronte, there's going to be building up. And if we focus the discussion on where the car is going to go, we're missing the point of it. Now, we do need to ensure that those condos have parking and they have, you know, the amenities that they need. But the conversation really should be, you know, in 20 years, how are these people going to move around? And I can tell you that already we're seeing it's not by car. I walk to the GO station every day. I see a lot of my neighbors walking with me. As we build more in Kerr, we're going to see more of that. So I think the question really needs to be, how do we ensure people are moving on our streets safely, not in cars? And I tell you, building bike lanes from Kerr and Spears to Oakville GO is a critical point that the current council is not willing to fund for another 3 elections, which may never happen at this point. So that's why I believe that needs to be one of the top priorities of the next council.
Thank you. Great.
Same,
Yeah.
repeat the question, please.
Sure. What do you think of additional construction of condos on Kerr Street, taking into consideration increased traffic and population density?
And that's the provincial mandate is intensification around modal transportation, and that's basically Metrolinx and GO. That's the plan. So everybody understands what Fraser's saying is already in play, ladies and gentlemen. All these things are in play on master plans and reports. For example, the province has approved our growth areas, and they're Bronte, Kerr Street, downtown Oakville, Claremont, and Midtown Oakville. We're building for the future. We're building infrastructure. You see all the digging that's going on. We're pushing water to the new Midtown Oakville. So we're bringing more people down, we have to bring more people downtown, but again, when you do that, you're building condos and high-rise, and people get concerned about anything over 8 stories. The reality of it is, if we want to have a vibrant downtown or a vibrant south of QEW, we need to bring people down. Now, with the parking issue, that will have to be considered in the development process side of it, that everything's going to be mostly underground. So any development that goes on Kerr Street or anywhere has to go underground. There's just no surface parking. The other issue we don't have any more surface for roads. And I think we need to get our heads around that we cannot build more roads. And when we talk about bike lanes, I understand what Fraser's saying, but you only have so much space, and how are you going to deal with that when the existing roads are already there and you don't have a lot of room? We're doing everything humanly possible to put in the active transportation, bike lanes and bike tracks. As I said earlier, we've got them going in at Spears Road when it starts to develop in the next 2 years.
Thank you. Gordon?
I agree this is a provincial mandate and provincial matter, but I'm against subdivisions. I think any development, Kerr Street is fine. Kerr Street needs anything it can get, in my humble opinion. So if we're going to have condos on Kerr Street, that's fine.
Great, thank you. Gordon? Existing bylaws don't seem to adequately protect long-standing residents from unsightly building projects that are not completed in a reasonable amount of time. Do you support strengthening and, most importantly, enforcing bylaws to ensure that new residential builds are completed in a timely fashion?
Me? Well, let's look at it this way. I really don't think builders intentionally delay building things. Obviously, their intention is to finish as soon as possible, get their money, and move on. So, it's either labor or material or permit. It's unbelievable permits. I've done a couple of condo developments. Believe it or not, people move into their condo because it's 99.9% completed, and they live there from 6 to 8 months, but they cannot get the condo approved. Isn't that absurd? Isn't that absurd? It's like you need to approve a condo. Like I said, if we were in Hong Kong, the approval would be within a day or two. Too many bylaws. My God, I think we did the last condo we did. I think we had, I don't know, 19 different approvals. It's just, so I don't want to punish builders. Like I said, they're interested in finishing fast, making money, move on. Who knows what the personal problems are, why they can't finish on time. Maybe the guy that's building the house ran out of money, so things have to stop. So no, I'm not in favor of any more bylaws.
Okay, Ray?
We have to be careful with this one too, because under the building code, that's mandated that they can build their home. There is no time limit when they can finish it, because there are circumstances, they might run out of money, or there could be a family issue and so forth. So that is not within the purview of the town. It is under the building code, and I do get frustrated when there's homes sitting there and they're half done, and they come back 6 months later or whatever. There's no end in it, and we cannot tax it. I checked that out with our finance and our legal. We cannot tax the property if they're late on putting it together. If you say it's in 1 year and it takes a year and a half, so be it. They're a private landowner, and as long as they don't impact the neighbors through garbage, lawn grass, debris, through the property standards bylaw, that's what we enact. Same with the lot maintenance bylaw, the nuisance bylaw. We use all those acts, and when there are complaints, we do follow up. Right now, bylaw enforcement probably has 5,000 to 6,000 of those yearly, and I reassure you, people in here have probably followed up with, and bylaws in there to help out. Understanding bylaws is limited in what their authorities they can do too. So, because you're following the building code and the planning act.
Thank you. Fraser?
Yeah, so I think it's been pretty much covered that the town doesn't have a lot of jurisdiction to force people to go quicker or whatnot. But the one thing I do think, and I've already mentioned it, is performance-based building permits, which would need provincial level changes. But because I think that the performance-based building code, whether it's punitive or an incentive to finish early, would ensure that you don't get the two brothers and their cousin tearing down their home and doing all the work themselves. You know, when they know that there's either a further punishment at the end if they don't meet their timeline, or an incentive if they finish early, you might see that you'll get less of the families tearing down a home and redoing it, which is, you know, realistically the ones I've come across are the ones that take 2 or 3 years to do. It's not the professional developers that are in and out in 12 months. So, you know, that may be an option we can take, but these guys are, you know, they are right. There's not a lot that the town can do other than ensure that the properties are maintained and that there's not a huge trouble to the residents. Now, on that though, one thing I would mention, I do find that there are a lot of developers that work on Sundays, and I know that there are needs to kind of get the project going. But during these developments, I'm a big believer that we need to ensure sustainable funding for after hours and weekend bylaw enforcement to ensure that if a development is happening, it's not disrupting the whole neighborhood on the day of rest. So there's little things that we can do to tweak that, but I would make part of my role as your councillor to work with the other cities and towns to see if we can possibly change this at a provincial level to look at different ways that we offer building permits.
Thank you. Ray, some streets in our neighborhood are frighteningly dark after sunset. Do you think we need more streetlights, and how can we get them?
Yes, I would agree with that. With the transformation from the incandescent to the LED lights, there has been a lot of concern about the lighting being very direct, and the old standards are farther apart, and they're dark spots. That's being reviewed as it stands now with engineering to look at those areas where we have dark spots for safety reasons, and that's right now in the works. I would believe there are probably about 15 areas that need consideration for better lighting since we went to the LED program. So yes, that's under review right now. How that's going to be done and when, I'm sorry I don't have that information, but yes, that's a challenge.
Thank you. Freddie?
Yeah, I mean, this is one we all kind of got really excited at the amount of money we'd save from the electricity savings from moving to this. But there is an issue on a lot of our older streets, especially the ones that are off of the beaten path, a lot of the ones off of Queen Mary. Even Queen Mary can be bad at times, but I've noticed it a lot on the streets that are off the beaten path where there aren't many cars. I would support whatever measures we do need to take to make them a bit safer. As you can kind of tell, street safety is a bit of my thing here. And it's not really a safe place to walk or ride, especially when there's no sidewalks and you can't really see, you know, people on the side of the road. So we absolutely need to take steps to ensure that our streets are made safer, and that includes lighting.
Gordon?
Well, if the streets wants it, I know, for example, some of the off Lakeshore streets don't want lights. They like it the way it is. So if the street wants it, accommodate. If there's no demand, why would you force lights on the street that doesn't like it, and it likes its present light?
Thank you. Fraser, how important do you feel Oakville's harbors are to the fabric of the town? And should voters pick up the full tab for harbor costs and services?
Yeah, so this is something that seems to have come up this election here. The harbors are incredibly important to Oakville, and any picture you Google of Oakville, the harbors are in almost every one. The one thing on the issue that happened with the Oakville Yacht Squadron, I was very frustrated with that, not overly on the issue itself, but the way that our mayor treated residents of Ward 2. And you can agree or disagree on the issue itself, but those residents were hung out to dry, and they had to deal with a very feisty mayor who was very upset with them. And it was very disappointing. Now on the, should they pay for it themselves? I don't necessarily believe the town needs to be in the harbor game. But I do worry about if we were to open it up to the private industry, what may happen with that area over time. So it's something that I think it needs to be in consultation.
I should point out that currently they do pay everything.
Well, but the one thing though that we need to ensure is that we're consulting with the people that are using our harbors to ensure that we don't get a continued Oakville Yacht Squadron example where where the mayor or members of council are telling those people how it's going to be. If we are going to make changes, it needs to be in consultation with the voters. And the one thing that I do worry about is that, you know, what the future holds if we continue to go down a route where our mayor is able to just dictate to people that are involved with this how they're going to be affected and how it's going to be. I was very frustrated with that, and I think both of our councillors should have been there to fight for those residents, even if they disagreed with the policy issue itself. There were a lot of residents hung up to dry there and should have.
Gordon,
Repeat the question.
how important are Oakville's harbors to the fabric of the town, and should voters pick up the full tab for harbor costs and services?
Well, obviously, it's very important. I think the Oakville has the least used water frontage of neighboring town. Look at Burlington waterfront. We don't even have a restaurant on the water. One exception. But it's Burlington. Obviously, I'm in favor of allowing private individuals to do as much as possible in these areas, for the simple reason that in fact that would take costs away from the town onto their shoulders. And usually, believe it or not, private individuals do a better job at things than the town. Believe it or not, if you're going to sink millions of dollars into something, you're going to do a good job. For the town sink a couple of millions, peanuts, nothing. There's no consequences. $5.5 million on Green Acres, which you will never ever see again. So I'm in favor. Let the private industry get in there, let them bear the cost, and I'm pretty sure they'll do an excellent job. You know, one of the most thriving cities in North America is Houston. Guess what? Houston doesn't have zoning, bylaws, or anything like that.
Thank you. Okay, so luckily we have some extra time. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. Ask you if you have a question.
I didn't answer that. I didn't get to answer that question. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question now?
How important do you think Oakville's harbors are to the fabric of the town, and should voters pick up the full tab for harbor costs and services?
Well, they're pretty close to that right now. It's a self-sustaining operation. Again, not put on the tax base, because people say, why do I have to pay taxes for the voters? So that revenue comes in is through the voting community. Now, with the harbors, there is a major harbor master plan that is undertaken with a lot of voters on this committee, and they've been working with the town closely for the last 3 or 4 years on the whole master plans of the two harbors, but also looking at a third harbor. The growth in sailing and boating is increasing in Oakville, and there's money that comes with that. There's an economic value and impact to that. But everybody has the right to come down to the lake and look at the lake, walk the lake, and that's what we've been doing for almost, in my history, over 20 years to the Regeneration Trust Fund for lake waterfront access. As you know, when a private seller sells and subdivided on a lake, the town comes in and takes a major portion of the waterfront. It gives everybody in this room an opportunity to go down and walk the lake and also the harbors. If I'm going to give a little plug here. If you have an opportunity to go down to Oakville Harbor, you'd be quite amazed at the development that has happened down there through the leadership of Chris Markin at Parks and Open Space. It's absolutely beautiful. It is an icon. We talk about the clock is the icon, our harbors are an icon. It sells Oakville. And we're opening, right now we're opening it up further. We're pushing into the lake, and there's many approvals to get that done. And the reality of it is there'll be more public access down to the lake. So I would implore all of you, when this is completed down there, go have a visit and take a walk. It's absolutely beautiful.
Where is the third harbor going to be?
That hasn't been decided yet. The third harbor is probably, with the discussion, probably more on the west end of town. Probably the old Shell Park, that property down there. That was a discussion, but right now it's Shell. I don't think that's going to happen for a long time with respect to R2, because we're spending a lot of money in the harbors because we had flooding issues and we had a lot of damage, and we had to mitigate all those. It was, I can't remember, it was a couple $1 million we had to put in to fix all the flooding that happened at Coronation Park and Bronx. That's right.
Okay, so as I was saying, we have a little time. So I'm going to open up the floor to questions. And if you will, when I call on you, please come up and speak into the mic so we can all hear you.
With the revitalization of Kerr Street and the plans to build condos, what are your plans to take care of people on Kerr Street that have subsidized housing, that need subsidized housing? Like, what do you
Do you want me
need?
to answer that?
Yeah, no, and Fraser.
Okay. This we have to be very clear when we're talking about subsidized housing. There is a difference. There's three levels. There's affordable housing, there's assisted housing, and subsidized housing. Let's talk about affordable. There's really difficult for having affordable housing in land values down here. Right now, our affordable housing, we have sold, there has been sales of 260,000 to 300,000. That seems to be the threshold for affordable housing, but it's not in this area. Like if I had to look at affordable housing here, you're probably looking at $850,000, which a lot of people can't afford. The whole idea is what I'm looking at, and would like to put to council, is affordable rentals. Because people don't have capital to get into a condominium or a home yet, they need rentals. And I think that's one thing we need to look at. But understanding that the town is not responsible for affordable housing, it is with the region. The region within their plans of development have to, if they're mandated, they have to have at least 29% of their development for affordable housing. And that's part. On the resales down here, it's more difficult. It's a big challenge. But right now, I would say we need apartments. We need affordable apartments for people to live in.
Thank you. Gordon?
Well, I agree with my friend here that this is a region matter. What exists currently on Hershey Street can be incorporated into the proposed plans and specs. So, leave it at that.
Yeah, so Ray's right, there is a conversation to be had around affordable and assisted. My big belief is that affordable housing is available and is an opportunity in Kerr Village because of the reduced commuting costs when you can factor in Oakville Go. So Kerr Village is already becoming the place, or a very attractive place for young professionals that work downtown Toronto, because they can pay far less to buy a condo here and walk to the GO station, like many of us at the Rain and Census buildings, and folks that were able to buy houses single detached here, and they don't have to use their car nearly as much as if they did if they lived in northern parts of Oakville. So there is a great opportunity with Kerr to offer affordable housing because of its proximity to Oakville Go and the ability to walk there. Now, on the assisted, Ray's right, it is a regional issue, but the one thing I do believe is that just because this role is for a town council does not mean you can be an advocate. And I know, each ward has 2 reps, and Kathy Duddick is our awesome, our town and regional councilor. But one of the things I think is really important is that when we're building new developments, have every couple of units available as assisted housing mixed in, so that we don't have entire pockets of assisted housing. And it's a model that's very successful. And as we go through new developments, we just have to make sure that continues. And it's something that ensures that. Would you like to jump in there? So it's something that we just need to continue to ensure is happening, because when you have that nice mix, there's not looks at the neighborhood. Well, that's the one area, that's the other. It's important to have it mixed together.
Question?
Earlier there was a question on tax rates in the town, and I think Fraser mentioned about holding the cost of living and so on. What my observation has been for many years is that the town seems to wait till the education is nothing and the region's like 1 point whatever and really the town is jacking up the taxes well beyond, and so then they tell it that the average is okay. Can you guys speak to that? Because it seems to me the town's been going well over the cost of living.
Yeah, so that was something that I think, again, it was brought out in this campaign of how much the town's share of property taxes has increased. Now, to my comment earlier, I do believe that once we get it to a sustainable level, we need to ensure that that raises with the level of inflation. Now, I think one of the things that has not been an appropriate move by council is having the exact same budget chair for as long as I can remember. And Tom Adams has done a fairly good job of that, but it's important to change it up a bit. And having the same people constantly making the same decisions has led to a point now where residents are told by their mayor and council that it's, oh, your property taxes are raising with inflation. And then you have someone else running for mayor saying, no, it's gone up 64%. So I think it's important that we get down to the facts here of that our taxes have increased more than the mayor said they did. And we need to make sure that we have a council that is looking at where our money is going and where it's being spent. And if our services aren't good enough, we need to ensure more money is going to that. But we can't continue to have endless amounts of growth in terms of property taxes if that's not needed. So I would look at that. But the one commitment I do have is I'm never going to say we're not going to raise taxes or that I'm going to lower your taxes, because it's not a practical policy point or it's a promise that is ill-suited for me. We will need to raise taxes with inflation, but we do need to look at where the books are right now. And I can tell you from what I've seen in the mayoral race, they're not as Mayor Burton has said they are, and we need to look at it.
Gordon?
I made myself quite clear, I'm not interested in voting for any tax increases. As far as I'm concerned, all I get paid enough tax.
Ray?
Anybody who wants to voluntarily send money to help out the town, I'm sure they were glad they take the check.
Ready? Okay. With respect to tax collection and so forth, yes, the municipality collects the taxes, but understanding the collected taxes, not just for Oakville, they're doing for the region, and it's also doing for the education. And the pie is broken out at 37% for the region, 40% for the town, and 22% for the education. So to say that the town is taking all these taxes for municipal is not. We do on behalf of the education and the region collect the taxes. As it stands now, the taxes rates, what you're getting now are on below inflation or right on inflation, and that's been going on for the last 3 years. People are throwing out all these numbers, and I'm trying to figure out what these numbers mean, because I've been on this budget and followed this budget, and our budget is very strong. It's within line. There's no inflation in here. We don't owe any money except for a small debt load for the hospital. We have a lot of reserves. Everything's being paid for. I just can't understand why somebody would start bashing the budget when knowing full well, if you go through the budget, it is very strong. We're a triple A, and our budget is in good shape. And I really get fed up with people throwing numbers out that don't understand what's going on. And I'll leave it as that. Thank you.
Who else has a question?
Hi, I know the topic of active transportation has come up already. I just want to highlight that I think it's really important that we focus on children using active transportation, going to and from school, rather than being driven. There's lots of benefits, including their physical activity and health, safety, reducing pollution, congestion, everything. The Ontario government has actually created an active school travel fund that provides $100,000 to cities who apply. And from what I can see on the website, the city of Oakville has not yet applied for a grant. So my question is, I guess if you were councillors, would you do this? Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. That funding has just come available. We were at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference, and I was at that table, and I picked that information up and forwarded it onto staff. That is a provincial direction, and I think it's an opportunity for us to get some funding. Absolutely.
Sorry, Frida?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you, $100,000 is not nearly enough that we need to be spending to make our streets safer. We need to look at every street as if a child was riding a bike on the street, would they feel safe and would they be safe? And I can tell you, almost every street in Oakville, the answer is no. So that $100,000 is great, but we need to be forking over more from the town perspective to that funding. So the town of Oakville recently got a grant through the cap and trade funding that the previous provincial government had, and a lot of that money was going towards good projects in Oakville. But the big thing that we need to do is look at our streets and say, if a child wouldn't feel safe riding here, then we need to start over. And I can tell you, a lot of streets around here, this is a problem across South Oakville, the streets weren't built to accommodate cyclists. And we need to go back to the drawing board and devote more funds to make our streets safer. Now, I'm not saying that every street needs bike lanes, but what I am saying is that when we build them, they have to be safe. And we should have a minimum grid that can get you across town into things like schools and Sheridan and our GO train stations to ensure that we're giving people a legitimate option to get around that's not by car. And you're right, I mean, the amount of congestion in front of schools is going to continue to get worse. And that's why, only when we offer kids a safe way to do an alternative will we start to fix that.
Gordon?
Well, if this grant has become available now from the province, of course, why not apply for it?
Ward 2's got some wonderful parks. The one thing we don't have is a dog park. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I'm going to hook in here with Councilor Dudek. We've been on the search for a dog park for the last couple of years, and there's certain criteria with respect to size and locations and so forth. We just haven't found that proper site yet, but we still continue on. You're right. There is a lack of dog park in our ward, and then we've looked at all the sites, and there is a checklist of what the requirements for the dog park is. So yes, that's still up, still going.
Gordon?
Obviously, I'm not on council, and whatever my friend says here, I'm sure it's all true, so.
So I'll be honest with you, I got a dog, his name's Buster Brown. He looks like a coyote, but he's a hell of a guy. And I don't live in this neighborhood, walking him. There's not a dog park in the area. And I think if our requirements are not allowing us to put a dog park in, then we need to relook at the requirements, because there is property that is sitting vacant. And there's property, and I'm thinking the one just at the top of Queen Mary, that is a construction zone right now, but at some point will be a park again. And there is opportunities for us to look at those to see if there maybe could fit there. Now, I'm with you that as we build more developments on Kerr Street, we're going to need more places for the dogs too. And in downtown Toronto, they are able to shoehorn dog parks into tiny parks. They don't need open acres to put these in like Shell Park. They can be in smaller zones, and if the requirements are not giving us the places for dog parks, and the community wants one, then we need to look at changing the requirements.
Yeah,
I've never seen a kid there.
that's going to be a challenge.
I've heard some discussion tonight about the revitalization of Kerr Street, but I haven't heard anything about the revitalization of Lakeshore.
Lakeshore Road?
Lakeshore downtown. When I moved here in 2002, our downtown was probably the crown jewel of Hull. And I go down there now and I see nothing but stores boarded up. What's council prepared to do about getting some businesses back into the downtown?
Well, there's a mitigation strategy happening, but with respect to the home, the business and so forth, the landowners unfortunately don't budge. They own it. We cannot convince them to lower their monthly rate or square footage rate, and it's difficult, absolutely. With the downtown, there's a heritage district within downtown which has some challenges with that, to bring businesses down. Hopefully, with now the new accommodation tax coming up in our tourism committee, that some of these dollars can start moving marketing and bringing people from off the highway downtown Kerr Street and Oakville. So there are some things happening, but at the end of the day, whatever the owner owns those buildings and what he's charging in rent, he has every opportunity to do that. But it's getting difficult for some of these store owners or storefront operations to survive and on the margins. So they're moving out, or they're moving to Kerr Street, or they're moving somewhere else, or they're closing up shop. That's a real challenge. And right now, with the streetscape going in place next year, it's going to make it doubly difficult. So the town is doing everything humanly possible to make sure the accessibility to all stores and parking. There'll be off-site parking for everyone. Locations down the bottom of Front Street, Water Street will be parking for everyone because we lose the parking when the construction goes on. This is a major construction going on.
Thank you. Gordon?
Well, my one suggestion is the free parking. It's worth the drive to the next thing is that we need more parking. Big issue. That the old post office on Rebecca has been sitting there 10 years. Doing nothing. Why can't the town pick this up? Especially with the assistance of my friend's mother. Former councilor of Ward 2, now MP for the area. Get a good deal from the federal government. Turn that into an up and down parking area. Why not? It's been dead for 10 years. There's two main streets in North, Lake and my favorite, Spears. You been on Spears lately? That thing hasn't been fixed in 30 years. It's terrible. When is that going to be done? No. A lot of this town stuff is done, they're going to change the environment or change the work, God knows what. Let's stick to what the town should do. Good sewers, good roads, good parks, good sidewalks, basics. So let's fix up Spears Road. That will be my primary. The other thing that must be fixed up is Lakeshore. Lakeshore's a dump. Come on. It's not pretty.
All right, so I think one of the biggest things we need to do with downtown Oakville is work with a developer to bring a boutique hotel. I was very pleased to see Juliana use that idea as a part of her campaign. I've been saying that for quite a while because I think one of the missing links between our businesses is having people live or visit directly in that area. And downtown Oakville has a lot of the same qualities that Niagara on the Lake has without the accommodations to be able to stay there on a visit. And I can tell you that the rent is high there to rent a store in downtown Oakville. But if you were making enough money there, if you had a business with enough foot traffic that you could stay open until 9 and 10 p.m. at night, like other places, especially Niagara on the Lake, you might see that we start to revive that again. So I think the question is we can't be putting the onus on, well, you're a bad developer, you're charging too much. We should be asking, why can't businesses make a go here? And I think the biggest thing is that there's just not enough foot traffic. So a boutique hotel would offer people an opportunity to stay in downtown Oakville and to spend money there, which may help revive some of that. I also think we need to work with Sheridan College and some of the more northern parts of Oakville to ensure that there is a way for people to walk or ride their bikes to downtown. Port Credit is a thriving business area in Mississauga, and you can ride there from the most northern stretches of the city. Our downtown is very difficult to ride a bike to, and it's little things like that where I think we need to start changing the conversation about downtown Oakville away from the bad landlords into what we can do better.
I'm interested and concerned about climate change, and I hope there are other people in the room that are also. So I believe that Oakville doesn't have a community-wide climate change strategy that lays out emission targets and actions to meet Canada's commitment to the Paris Accord. And I'd like to know what part you would play in developing those emission targets and action plans for Oakville.
Gordon, why don't you go first?
Well, obviously, my humble submission, that should be left for the federal and provincial government. I'm not sure the city or town like Oakville really can do much about climate change. That's my If you like it, go ahead.
So in terms of environment and protecting our environment, I think one of the really great things that we need to do is support Oakville Transit's move to electric buses. They're already looking at doing this thing. And
I already started.
so Ray's likes to jump in, I guess, when other people are talking. But it is something that we need to greatly encourage because Oakville Transit still does have diesel buses. And if we fully move to electric, which other cities have done and Oakville Transit has made a commitment to do, it'll also help the people that have talked to Gordon about a lot of buses going down Fort Line. They're a lot quieter. So I think it's a really easy thing that the town can work towards that does help meet our climate target. I don't believe that passing the buck is an appropriate response, and I think that there is stuff that the town can do, starting with our Oakville Transit buses.
Okay. Yeah, just to add to that, the town has, in the environmental department, are dealing with a lot of the issues with climate change. We have, and probably a lot of you don't know, we have an emergency preparedness in place because of all the weather patterns we're having, and they're very strong weather patterns now. When you see what happened in Burlington, they had flooding, in Toronto they had flooding. It's going to happen here, and the reality of it is our stormwater systems in some parts of Ward 2 are not, but we need to do strong infrastructure to get this cleared up because flooding is an issue. Some of you probably live on properties where you have ditches, and you see the water sitting there and it's no longer moving because the grading's off and the development is happening and so forth. So we have a water flooding issue in our area. With respect to the town, they've done a lot of conversion on propane and a lot of machinery for lack of discharge of any toxins or ICBs, they call them, I think is the terminology. So the town is very aware of what they're trying to do to clean up the environment, and by using their own equipment and so forth and transferring those equipment into new technologies are very important. The buses, of course, are doing that, electrifying the buses and also and using green energies. We also have a LEED program, and I think probably a lot of you know that with developments. We also include in our own buildings LEED, and it's a very high level program to make our buildings organic to some degree. Thank you.
That's about it for tonight, I think. I want to thank Elizabeth. First of all, we have photos.
Yes. I'm last, that's all
So I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and for all the folks that are watching on Facebook Live to make sure to go out and vote on October 22nd. You've heard from the three of us very different ideas for how we want to be your town councillor, different visions. On October 22nd, I do hope you'll cast your ballot for me, Fraser DeMoss, so that on October 23rd we can finally take on concrete steps to make our streets safer, to make them less congested, as well as to provide much needed support to our local businesses in Oakville. I will continue to fight unapologetically like a dog on raw meat to protect Glen Abbey Golf Course. I will ensure our community deals with cannabis retail stores in a responsible and safe way by not opting out. And I will provide more open, transparent, and independent communicative leadership for our ward and town to ensure that when you send me to council, I'm answering to nobody except the residents of Ward 2. I'm asking for your vote on October 22nd so that on October 23rd, I can get to work with you to solve the issues facing our ward. Jane Jacobs once said that cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. I promise to keep Ms. Jacobs' words as a motto close to my heart if you choose me on October 22nd. To those here tonight and to those watching, please vote for me, Fraser Moff, for the Town Councillor of Oakville Ward 2. Thank you.
Don't forget, I'm Mr. B, hard-working B. I'm asking that the town have some big visions. Think big, think out of the box, think big about Glen Abbey. Think big about parking. Think big about Canada. I pledge to keep taxes at the current level, and I pledge to control development, no more subdivision. I pledge to remove as much red tape as possible. We don't need 65 rules about putting up signs for election. God, it's just an example. I'm in support of local small business, because I'm a small businessman myself. I know how hard it is to make public policy. I pledge to get Spears Road paved in the 4 years that I will be in the office. This will be my #1 priority. Also, I'm in favor of revamping Lakeshore under one condition. They don't cut any trees down. Like I said, I love trees. We fought to develop it, what it's called now, the Royal Oakville Club there, Rebecca and Dorval. The old army days, everybody remembers that? They had these beautiful trees, 40, 50-year-old trees. Guess what happened? They cut every one down. We fought that with the town. You know what the answer of town was? Oh, for every tree they cut down, they're going to plant 3 trees to replace it. You know how big the trees were? 5 feet. So, when they're 40, 50 feet, I won't enjoy it. Neither will you. Even in the center of development, where they have a park now, they cut the big trees down there too. They planted the 5-footers. So anyway,
Thank you.
thank you for listening.
Tonight you've had the opportunity to hear from me, and hopefully you had some insight on my background and the successes that have been achieved in our board. I'm a lifelong resident of Oakville. I've lived here for over 40 years in Ward 2, and I'm very familiar with all the issues that face us in our community. Ward 2 requires a strong advocate at Town Council, someone whose extensive experience is committed to representing our residents on a full-time basis. You need a strong candidate who will continue to meet with staff and residents on their schedule, not yours. It's important to understand the neighborhood issues and to provide support and get answers in a timely fashion. I am that candidate. I'm not running because I'm aspiring for higher political office, nor do I need a job. I'm doing this to get back to my community, and I really believe that. I have lived in Oakville all my life, and I have experienced many changes. Oakville has been good to me and my family. My schooling was in Oakville, along with my deep connection to sports, and lastly, my career in recreation provided me a deep sense of community and appreciation to the quality of life that we all enjoy in the town of Oakville. The residents have shared their concerns and identified the issues facing our neighborhoods. My focus is to work with the community and to advocate through collaboration and discussion, and transparency is paramount. Why vote for me? I think I proved myself already in 2 years. Results-driven, extensive municipal experience, committed to this position full-time and available and accessible to all residents through face-to-face meetings and not solely relying on email or Twitter communications. Extensive community networking and proven success in fiscal accountability. I'm truly proud of my accomplishments in a very short period of time. My involvement, participation along with my colleague, Councillor Kathy Dunn, has been a rewarding experience, and we've got some great results coming forward. We just finished the fire hall, Oakville Arena, which I call Oakville Arena because I used to play my junior hockey there, and I have great memories. The commencement of the First Street Underpass project, Kathy and I stepped it up by 2 years, and we're very happy about that too. So there's some great stuff happening in our ward. Thank you.
That's the end of our evening. I want to thank Elizabeth Hibbard for her excellent timekeeping. I want to thank the 3 men here not only for stepping forward to be candidates, which is a big deal in itself, but also for coming here tonight and having questions thrown at them for an hour and a half. It's no easy thing, so big round of applause for them. And I'm really pleased that so many of you came out, so big round of applause for you. Thank you. Don't forget to vote.